Welcome back to Following Nolan, a Stormlight podcast. This week is episode 74, and we're doing chapters 66 through 70 of Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. We've got some Kaladin chapters, some Shallan chapters, and one Dalinar flashback chapter to talk about this week, and we'll start with Dalinar 1. But first, Paul, how are you, and who's on our Patreon mug?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here once again. This week, on our lovely little, I don't know if you can tell, there's a little rose. We have Robert. Rose for Robert. So, everyone give a little round of applause for a rose for Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
And
Thank you.
thank you very much. Oh no, I forgot to like it. Robert is an ardent. Am I right? Do you know this, Trevor?
Is that your final answer?
Yes. He's a
All right. I think if
he's
you
a
had
surgeon.
I think if you had tried to get them wrong, you would have done a worse job because he is a surgeon, in fact, and you're still 0 for 5 or whatever you're at.
I think so. I think so. I think I'm literally 0 for 5. I think I may have gotten the first one. I think I got our first. Wait, I don't even know if I got our first one right or not. Anyways, I apologize, Robert. You're a great surgeon, and thank you for the support.
Thank you, Robert. Elliot, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Excited to be back again, talking more Stormlight with you guys.
Good. Happy belated birthday. Elliot recently had a birthday.
Happy birthday, Elliot.
Alrighty. Paul, we'll start with you. I have 2 words for the summary of episode 74.
Sure. I'm gonna pat myself on the back because I think it sounds cool, but it's not really that deep. My 2 words for this week are forgetful remembrance.
Forgetful remembrance.
Remembrance. Yeah, remembrance. Yes.
Okay. Elliot?
My 2 words are learn why.
Ooh, learn why and forgetful remembrance. I like these 4 words. Let's use them and talk about Oathbringer.
Aren't you supposed to say like these words are accepted or something like that?
That's what I was thinking. Are you supposed to like do a little? You say
it's not
after every episode. You're like, I should do that, and then before every episode, you don't do it.
Yeah, I just don't think it's worth it to start, halfway through Oathbringer, the 3rd book. I mean, just it's a missed opportunity. Let it pass.
Well, what's the quote? Maybe a hypocrite is just someone who's in the process
of changing. Yeah, okay. All right.
What if he just?
Are you quoting Brandon Sanderson now?
Yeah, and maybe you'll actually listen.
Okay. All right. Elliot, tell me about your words.
Mine are pretty obvious if you read the chapters. In chapter 68, we have another great conversation with Wit, Hoyd, whatever you want to call him. And it spurred, this chapter spurred a little bit of discussion. I was asking all of our Discord folks to chime in. I keep reading Wit interactions and just coming out of them like, what in the world did I just read? And this was one of those. But I loved how it ended, where Shallan basically says, no, man, I'm going to change the world. You wait and see. And Wit responds back with, you already know how, learn why. And I thought that was super deep, so it had to be my 2 words.
Cool. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Paul, tell me about your 2 words.
So my 2 words, forgetful remembrance. Go, like, they're independent, but they also kind of come together. So forgetful is a kind of a stab, really, at Dalinar.
Okay.
And him, just, Dalinar as a character doesn't remember a lot of his past, or like things that have happened and stuff, right? But we see specifically him forgetting about his youngest son, Renarin, which is kind of sad. Poor Renarin. Nothing too deep there. And then with Remembrance, that's actually in reference to our Kaladin chapters at the end, and kind of remembering to Bridge 4, or kind of the formation of it, or kind of that environment. I feel like we're almost seeing like a mini repeat or something along those lines there. And so I thought that was kind of neat, and kind of remembering that. I also think just like the juxtaposition of those two words, this is really deep. That just the wittiness with those words is kind of my stab also at Shallan and Hoyd's discussion, because it's very, it really is like a battle of brains there for like no prize, but they're just like going at it with jokes and stabs and stuff.
True.
So it's kind of fun.
I feel like there's a lot of paradoxes or opposites that would describe wit well, so I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about forgetfulness, that first word that you had there, because chapter 66, we have a Dalinar and Evie flashback chapter, and Evie feels like their marriage is not going well, and Dalinar's like, well, they're in Yakaved at this point. He has just been on a battlefront, and Dalinar says, oh, we'll all go on a vacation. He's trying to like make her feel better because she's kind of in tears, and he's like, oh, we'll go on vacation, all three of us, and like you me and Adolin. And then she's like, you have two sons, right? And he's like, oh, yep. Oops.
That's like a step worse than when the husband forgets the anniversary, right? It's like you just forgot about your other child.
Yep.
Or it's like when, a parent picks up one kid from school but forgets to pick up the other kid from school. Like this is worse. You forget you even had another kid.
Mm-hmm.
Bless Evie's heart. She's trying so hard to make all this work because she's not a Lethe, but she's certainly trying to fit in and be a Lethe for Dalinar because she thinks that's what Dalinar wants from her. And she's trying to make the family work. She's trying to raise Adolin and Renarin as best she can without Dalinar, because Dalinar is off being a general. And then she asks for like a sliver of emotional support from Dalinar and doesn't get it. So I feel bad for Evie.
I noticed how Evie talks in this chapter about how she's frustrated that the Alethi have to make everything a competition. Like all the males are all kind of vying for, power and dominance, and then even all the females, like, every conversation is about, subterfuge and tact, and she doesn't, she gets really frustrated by that, and I kind of noticed, like, you know what, she's right. Like, Alethi do make everything a competition, don't they?
Did you guys have any other takeaways from this chapter besides old Dalinar is not present day Dalinar by any stretch of the imagination?
Yeah, that we already knew. Just proving the fact further.
Pretty much. It was sad to see, and honestly, my only other 2 cents about him like forgetting Renarin, at least in the audiobook, it doesn't really seem like he forgot Renarin very well. It sounds like he says, like, you, me, and Adolin, and then he's kind of like cut off. Or that's how I remember hearing it in the audiobook. So
Okay.
kind of took me a while to realize, like, if Dalinar was like really wrong there, if he just didn't get to finish what he was saying, which is kind of funny. But yeah, no, he definitely forgot Renarin, so that's sad. That is all, though.
Well, just to jog your memory a little bit from last week we closed our scene, we closed our reading with Dalinar just jumping through the Oath Gate and having a sudden revelation of how Evie died. And then this next chapter is a rift in their marriage. Interesting choice of words, sorry. Any foreshadowing there?
I actually had another thought. It's not foreshadowing or anything, so if Elliot has anything like that, feel free to add. But my only other thoughts about this chapter is like we do see Dalinar and how he's kind of portrayed as being able to take on anything, like any fight or any like challenge and stuff that's kind of in front of him. And then now he is faced with basically just like a trial in his relationship with his wife, right? And she's very unhappy. And I just remembered kind of at the end because when she's talking about everything being a competition, she's talking about like getting along with the other women, right? And it's always a game of. It's always just like fake, kind of like this political game of who's the smartest, like etc. etc. And Dalinar has no idea how to like comfort with that, and it's sad to see. It's tough. It's kind of tough, but I kind of feel bad for Dalinar, and I'm also kind of like, well, it's just a mess. It's a big mess that Dalinar has there. So kind of sad.
I was feeling the same things as you, Paul. And actually, throughout this whole chapter, I was really just kind of frustrated, actually, because, like you said, Trevor, we just finished a chapter where Dalinar has the revelation. So I'm thinking, okay, this is it. This is the chapter. This is the earth-shattering moment. And then it's really not. It's just kind of this fight between Evie and Dalinar, which is not what I was looking for. So the suspense drags on even further. We still don't know.
True. We'll have to keep reading and find out, because we don't find out in this episode. Anything else from our Dalinar flashback chapter before we move on to Shallan? I'll take that as a no. All right. We have the reappearance of Hoid in our chapter. This is our first appearance of Hoid in this book, and I'm extremely happy. I really like Hoid, and his random, lore, whatever, parable chapters, whatever you want to call them. They're a blast for me. So he's back, and he's talking about this parable of the moons and this queen of Natin who talks to the moon and stuff like that. So what were your guys' impressions of Hoid's re-entrance here?
Okay, I have two things. One, I would like to overall address Hoid for 1 second here, because I really had this thought. Because I feel like we had 2 chapters of it felt like straight Hoid content here, and I really had this thought, of like, is Hoid actually important at all? Like, there's always been this notion of like he's really old, he's totally different from everyone else. What is he? Like their thoughts of like, is he a herald? Is he from another world? Is he a god? Like, what the heck is Wit? Who is he? And I really had this thought of, does it matter? And will we ever find out? Like, I'm literally thinking of him right now, almost like I'm comparing this to Lord of the Rings again. Like Gandalf, we know is old and wise, right? But we don't really know his story, really, right? We're just like, okay, cool, it's Gandalf, he knows a lot, I'll ask him for advice. And Hoyd is a way more chaotic version, but I'm kind of almost in the boat that he's not actually going to be he comes in and tells these great like stories, and we can kind of learn from him and stuff. But like, grand scheme, is he going to be important? I have no idea.
He showed up in Warbreaker for one chapter when we read it, and so yeah, how old is Hoyd exactly? He actually gives an answer to that question.
He does
in this chapter. Well, an indirect answer, but it's still more information than we're used to getting. So
yeah, true. Like he says that when the heralds were born, he had already lived dozens of lifetimes. And so we know that he is older than the heralds. He's, I assume, as old as time, kind of thing. But that doesn't really tell me much.
And
My
the rest of
actual
that. Sorry, Paul, just to tack onto that a little bit. Just the rest of that quote too, where he finishes that off by saying, "Old is a word you use for worn shoes. I'm something else entirely." Like that's the kind of stuff that feeds this like mystery for me behind Hoyd of that stuff like old is time. Like what is he? Not who is he, but like what is Hoyd? He seems like something different. Is that important? Like I am kind of with you. Is he meant to just be mysterious and unknowable and we never will know? I don't know.
I mean, isn't like the first mention of Hoyd? They're like the wit is not like anyone else or whatever. Like he's entirely his own thing, and so I'm kind of yeah.
The first intro you get to Hoyd is in the Way of Kings. It's a Dalinar chapter, and Dalinar's thinking to himself, well, there's dark eyes, and then there's light eyes, and then there's kind of just wit. Like he's just wit. He's wit.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's important. I don't know if we'll find out. And like, I'm almost to the point which I didn't think I would be here because I think Hoyd is really cool. But right now, I don't really care. I don't really care that he's here. I would love to find out about Wit. But right now, I'm like, okay, let's see the like unmade or like I don't know all this crazy stuff. So, um, yeah. So, my actual thought is not really a thought about the chapter. It's more so this chapter was titled Mishim, right?
Mishim.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of the story that Hoyd tells, and honestly, it was hard for me to follow. And that's my thought about this was it was hard to understand or see like what was actually going on. I feel like I needed to I listened to it twice. I think I needed to listen to it like 5 more times to actually like figure it out. So
I'm with you.
that is all.
Elliot, do you want to do some explaining for him?
No, I am in the exact same boat. I read this twice. I even, on the second time was going incredibly slow through this whole story of Mishim the Moon and this queen and their little banter, love affair, whatever this turns out to be. And I'm going through the whole thing, like looking for meaning, like where's the moral, where's, the message here that Shallan needs to know. Nothing. I came out of it just as confused as the first time I read through it. I have no idea what Hoyd is trying to do with this, or even if he is trying to do anything with this, or if he just loves to tell stories and be silly. Like maybe that's just him.
I'm really glad that you feel that way too. Like they're just with the not really understanding the story, because now Trevor can explain it all to us and make it make sense, right?
I will explain it with a question for you. How does he answer? Well, he tells Shallan something in response to a question of why are you here in the city? Why now? Why are you here? And what does he answer with that?
So I think what you're going for here was actually stuck out to me as really important. I highlighted this and put some exclamation marks in my notes on this. He responds back by saying, hopefully this is what you're getting at, I made a vow. I said I'd always be there when I was needed, which is rather cryptic, but at the same time might give us some explanation for kind of, what he's doing and why. Is he bound by some sort of oath to, like, he has to be there when he's needed, which would totally explain him showing up in absolutely random locations when big important things are about to happen.
So he has a second part to that phrase, because you're absolutely right. That's what I was going for there. Is he doesn't know what he needs to do. He just gets to know where he needs to be. So when Shallan asks him, "Why are you here?" and he says, "I don't know. I'm here because I've been instructed I need to be here, but I don't know why."
He then goes on in a few paragraphs later, though, to contradict this a little bit, which doesn't surprise me at all because it's Hoyd. They eventually get into talking about Shallan is like, well, if you're here to help me, what help me? Tell me what you're doing. And he responds back with, "Oh, actually, I'm not here for you," which spawns all kinds of questions of, well, who is he here then for? Who is he supposed to be helping, or who is he supposed to be there for if not Shallan? But then also, how does he know?
How do you know that? Right, exactly.
How does he know that he's not here for Shallan? Or is he just being facetious again and saying, "Oh, no, I'm not going to help you because I'm not actually here for you, even though I just told you that I don't know why I need to be places, I just know where." Yeah, okay, Hoyd.
He misses his trailman's flute that Kaladin has lost somewhere.
He does remind us of that every time. He's like, "Man, I miss my flute."
Yes.
That is another item that I thought was going to be important, and then it just kind of never showed up again. And Hoyd is just kind of lamenting its loss every few books. And okay, guess maybe that wasn't important, or maybe it is important. It's going to come back.
Is this our equivalent of the Wander Sail chapter?
It is titled similarly, where it's just titled Misham, and it's some random parable. But with the Wander Sail, I feel like there was a nice moral to the story, and Kaladin asked the same thing. And with this one, Eliot, you're wondering, why are we being told this story? Why now? Shallan's wondering the same thing. Why are you? What's going on?
I'm going to be disappointed if this is the equivalent of the Wander Sail chapter for this book, because it didn't involve Dalinar. For symmetry purposes and book themes and character arcs, like, everything is pointing to the fact that Dalinar needs to have one of those moments with Hoyd, since it's his book and Dalinar wasn't here. So my brain wants to say, no, this can't be, but maybe it is.
I refuse to confirm or deny.
Of course. I did want to pause, actually, and we may have actually mentioned this before, but in the Misham chapter, when he's telling the story, it talks again about how he kind of uses smoke to tell the story, right? He's got all these like really cool images, and Shallan's standing there trying to figure out, like, oh, is he surge binding? Is that like a power, a Stormlight driven power? And I think we might have tried to guess at this before, but it's got me wondering again, is he surge binding? Is he using some sort of a Stormlight driven magical ability, or is this something completely different? I think this is part of what feeds that theory for me that he's otherworldly, that he doesn't come from this world. He's got powers, he's got abilities that are from completely other places, because this like ability to manipulate smoke seems a little bit out of place.
You definitely have something to add to this. Because I wanted to bring it up because in typical Brandon Sanderson fashion, there's an item that was pointed out that Hoyd had in his bag. Do you remember this, Eliot?
Don't. What was it?
So it talks about Shallan could see into his bag, I guess, as he was closing it or something like that. And there was a jar, I believe. There was a jar, and like what she could see, it was like black on her side that she was looking at, and then like white on the other, or really bright or something. And it definitely, like, it kind of gave me the vibe of like colors and like breaths kind of thing. That's where my mind went. But I don't know. It was very vague and just like pointed out, but it was definitely pointed out. Like there's no reason that Brandon Sanderson would point out this random jar that's like kind of mysterious.
It's right.
Unless it's to allude to something, right?
It's right as he recognizes her, Elliot, if you're looking for it. In the crowd, he notices something real quick and then quickly scans the crowd and finds her.
I'll have to find it later because now I'm intrigued because I missed that. And there are definitely some other similar or maybe hints towards this is a breaths related thing, maybe. But
Like
I also feel like,
hair.
yeah, oh yeah, his hair for sure. But I almost kind of feel like you and I are just kind of looking for that because that's the only like outside Cosmere that you and I have. I guess you've got a little bit of Mistborn knowledge, but like I feel like we're almost maybe trying to force the peg into that hole. Just we want that to be the case because that's what we've read. But yeah, I'll have to look that up. I don't remember that.
So
Yeah, it was very small. Like you'll see it and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you'll remember back to the Wander Sale and the scene, I don't remember what the title's called at the festival where he talks to young Shallan, and in the Wander Sale chapter, Kaladin's watching the story in the smoke. He doesn't really like Wit's being extremely subtle with it at this point. Of Kaladin isn't sure if it's just tricking his eyes being tricked. Kaladin himself has Surgebind like earlier that day and he recognized it, so magic is on his mind when he goes and talks to Wit. And then in Words of Radiance, Shallan recognizes it like a glowing illusion as light weaving, but she's not sure if he did it or she did it. And the reader doesn't know that either, if he's done it or she's done it. So this is another time where he's at a campfire. He's in the middle of the city. He's not really hiding like his little illusion thing here. But Shallan's not sure if this is surge binding or if it's like light weaving or if it's another type of power or if it's literally just magic smoke. Like, and, there isn't much to it. So do you want to push on to 68 and your conversation with your 2 words, Elliot?
Yeah, we should definitely mention that because I really enjoyed where the conversation ended up going with Shallan and Wit here. There's actually along the way there's actually a fun quote about having lofty goals. They're talking about how do you save the world? How do you make a difference with the powers that you've been given? And Shallan says this. I'll just read it. What's the point of goals if not to spur you to something lofty? And then Wit responds, yes, aim for the sun. That way, if you miss, at least your arrow will fall far away, and the person it kills will likely be someone you don't know. Like that. That is a perfect example of Wit's wittiness of making fun of somebody's lofty goals, and the traditional version of that quote maybe that most of us have heard is aim for the sun. If you miss, you'll at least fall among the stars or do something good. And
exactly.
Wit twists it of yeah, shoot for the sun so that when you fail, the people far away are affected, not you. Clever. But I liked where it then ended up at, where my 2 words came in, or Wit's 2 words, I should say, where they're talking about changing the world, and Shallan's like, no, I'm going to figure out how. And Wit responds back with, you already know how, learn why. And that was really cool because Shallan does have powers. She does have the ability, even without her powers, I think she could be capable of changing the world and having an impact. We've already seen her have a huge impact on the entirety of Roshar. She's the one who pretty much single-handedly took down the first unmade we came across. And
not to mention she's saving the Alethi army from the Everstorm with the Oathgate.
Yeah. And all the things she's done so far. She's probably had made more of a difference than anyone else we've seen. And yet she's still kind of caught up around this, how do I do this? And Wit very wisely points out, I think, no, actually, the more important thing for you to figure out here is why. Why should you change the world? And in what way should you change the world is kind of how I read into that. If you've got the powers, now go figure out how to use them.
Before that conversation ends that way, we learn the name or a title of the unmade in the palace. You guys pick up on this?
Wit calls it where is it? The Heart of the Revel?
Yes. The Heart of the Revel. And we've gotten foreshadowing to, there's something in the palace, and when she's in the palace there's something like in the mirror looking at her and stuff like that. Some serious horror film content that you could pull out of those couple chapters when she was in the palace. But we get a title for it. We don't know if that's like it. This title isn't really matching to the names of the unmade, because they're supposed to be in like the old script, and this is kind of just a title of what she's referred to, where the Midnight Mother had a name. I don't remember the name of the Midnight Mother off the top of my head, and then this is the Heart of the Revel, but she's got another name. So what were you guys' thoughts on this, and what does Hoy tell her to do?
So he talks about how the Heart of the Revel like inspires or drives or kind of stokes the fire of like hedonism, basically, of it drives people to, eat to excess, to want pleasure, I guess, for lack of a better word. It is kind of what I got from it. And I kind of drew a parallel in my mind to the Queen, Aesodan, right, is her name?
Right.
There's this kind of this whole debate going on of when did the unmade show up? When did things start going wrong?
What came first, the unmade or the Aesodan?
Exactly. Because obviously this thing showed up at some point and it's causing a whole lot of problems. The whole palace is under its control. All the guards are under its control, apparently. But the behavior that it seems to be tied with seems like it may have been with Aesodan prior to all this. She was behaving in a way that kind of aligns with this. She was being very wasteful, and we had that chapter, that interlude where we saw the Ardent kind of, try and expose her for all the ways she was, being a heretic, and piles of rotting food while the people out in the city go, hungry kind of thing. So yeah, your question is the right one. Which came first, the Aesodan or the unmade? Is Aesodan, like, her behavior drew this unmade, or has the unmade been like kind of possessing Aesodan much further back than we thought? These are the questions.
I think I know. Well, okay. I don't know, but I have my guess. So we know that Spren basically are attracted to things, right? Like when there's like, okay, whatever. Insert Spren or whatever, however you imagine them to be, however you perceive them to be, or whatever, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But we see like water Spren with the water, like all the stuff, right? And from what we've seen, or unmade are kind of these like twisted versions, and I think they would be attracted to the like unhealthy version of like their kind of twisted quality, if that makes sense. So my guess would be that that our unmade is attracted to Aesodan, or that it was brought on by Aesodan. In the same way that we saw our previous one, and we saw it kind of like spying on Shallan, or kind of like around Shallan, and I think that is in part due to the unhealthy things that Shallan has been up to in our book here, or at least just light weaving in general, but like that's kind of what that Ray Shapir, I don't know, was interested in or trying to, I guess, be around. So that's my guess. I think that's more likely than they just kind of happened to be right, which does actually make sense. They were in Urithiru, which was like kind of mythical anyways, so it makes sense either way in my mind, but that's how I'm thinking of this right here.
I really like that you brought this up, Paul, because all the way back in the Way of Kings, you get a Kaladin flashback chapter, and his dad is referring to medicine as you apply antiseptic to scare away the rot spren, so the rot spren don't bring infection. But and that's kind of how spren are viewed, is they're attracted to certain things in the physical realm. Or I'm sorry, the other way around. They're
Causing.
They cause things in the physical realm. Thank you. And at the end of the book, Sylphrena asks Kaladin, do wind spren attract the wind, or do they cause it? And it's kind of the question of, was Kaladin honorable before Syl was there, or did Syl cause Kaladin to be honorable? And we learn later that Syl was attracted to Kaladin because he was honorable, and that's how when she came, she found him because he was already being honorable. So when the unmade is doing unmade stuff, and is the unmade attracted to pleasure, hedonism, whatever from Aesodan? That's a really good question.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Anything else from our Shallan chapters?
Not over here.
Let's talk about Kaladin.
All right. We have 2 Kaladin chapters, and the first one, Kaladin is experimenting with the spren that are surrounding the city and policing all of the Stormlight that's being used in the city. It started with span reeds, that if you used your span reeds, a fused would come and pick you up and take you away. And then it happened with their soulcasters. They realized they couldn't soulcast anything. And then, so Kaladin's learned that from the city, and now is experimenting of, if I surge bind, if I infuse this rock with Stormlight, is that going to attract something? And sure enough, he infuses this little rock, like barely, and then a bunch of spren go, wah, 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 and then a fused, shows up, and he hides from it. So,
sorry, how did the spren sound?
You heard it.
Can you do that one more time?
You can back the video up 10 seconds and listen to it again.
Yes, I think that was accurate, but I'll just have to go
with the notable exception of whatever Hoid's doing and light weaving, they are these spren and then the fused are policing all of the Stormlight being used in the city and confiscating, the span reeds and stuff like that. So what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I was very curious why light weaving is an exception, because Kaladin does his little test. Sure enough, the things come. But we've seen Shallan. Shallan's like light weaving the whole time. She's constantly got these disguises either on her or other people of the party, and they don't come to that. Why? she even like does her thing, I think, where she, ties the light weaving to a sphere and says, hey, Kaladin, here, carry this with you. So it's not even like it's just her wielding it. It's in my mind, the Stormlight is off doing its thing. It's just like when Kaladin imbues the stone and makes it levitate. So why is it different?
Yeah, Trevor. What makes it different?
Do tell.
So what comes first, the Spren or the fused?
Spren, right? The Spren are like the alarm beacon, and then the fuse show up afterwards.
Right. So if they're light weaving, maybe the Spren don't see light weaving as a problem. Maybe they like lies, and so they're like, "Oh, that's fine."
Yeah, that sounds a little far-fetched.
Are they smart enough to detect the lies,
Maybe.
Maybe they're also cryptics and they don't want to rat out another cryptic in pattern,
Maybe that's why Syl doesn't like cryptics, is because they're buddy with the fused.
Yeah, maybe so.
So in this,
Hopefully,
go ahead.
Hopefully, we'll find out at some point soon.
Hopefully. The next thing that happens in this chapter is Kaladin is set up to go to this party with Adolin and Elokar, and he's supposed to be like one of the light-eyed guards with Adolin and Elokar, but last minute he's like, that sounds boring. I'm gonna go talk to the wall guard because that sounds more productive. And he climbs the wall and is kind of looking out. Actually, he doesn't climb the wall yet. He's walking towards the wall, and the wall guard actually approach him, and they start like, hey, what's up? And he turns, and they all are shocked to see his brands on his forehead. Now, two things interesting about this is, one, Kaladin is light-eyed at this point. So for Kaladin to get a Shash brand while being light-eyed is like practically unheard of. That if a light-eyed were to do something that bad, they would just, kill him. Like they would just execute him. If a dark eyes were to do something that bad, they can at least make a slave out of him. But if you're light-eyed, you can't be a slave. So they would just, whatever. Second thing is, why can they see them in the first place? Right?
And I'm asking these exact same questions. Why did the light weaving, again, light weaving is doing funky things here. Shallan puts a light weaving disguise on Kaladin, and then it's gone, like an hour later. Whereas the other ones are working just fine. And even before, Kaladin's disguise worked just fine when they were coming into the city, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work now. This is super odd. And the only thing I can think of is, for similar reasons that we investigated at like the end of Way of Kings, I think it was, where we expected Kaladin's Stormlight powers to be able to heal his brands, and they don't.
Yep.
And we don't know why. And it seems kind of tied to somehow that like Kaladin's personal past is important to him. It defines, part of him, and so therefore it needs
who
to.
I am. Sorry.
Yes,
We've had that
exactly.
before.
It's a good one. It fits perfectly with this situation, because Kaladin is like, saying, "Oh, I want to get rid of my past," but no, his past is stuck with him. It defines who he is. So it's almost like this is even going even further to where his personality and his past is so powerful that it even overpowers Shallan's light weaving stuff. But that seems even, I don't know, weirder to me. That's not even like a magic based thing. It's just his personality is so strong. Weird.
There's two more details to add here. When they were all getting their Bridge 4 tattoos, they all got it on their forehead. And Kaladin's didn't stick because his brand was there. That's the whole reason why they got them on their forehead, is because their slave brands are on their forehead and they're covering up their slave brands. But he gets it inked in or whatever. And then as soon as he draws in Stormlight, the Stormlight heals the Bridge 4 tattoo and not the slave brand. Second thing, our Herdazian, our one-armed Herdazian friend, Lopin, is no longer one-armed. Stormlight was able to heal Lopin's arm, his full arm, and it's not able to heal Kaladin's brands.
Maybe the brand is part of his honor.
Ooh.
Like part of what's like given him his honor, you know, like kind of that step of humility. And so maybe that's actually an integral part of him being who he is. And so it can't just like wipe that away, you know.
I like that because that actually works with this scene as well. Maybe his honor is preventing him from doing the deceitful thing and wearing a disguise. So that lines up.
Paul with the big brain theories tonight.
I like it.
Yeah. Me and Elliot decided to switch roles. Where I'll bring the deep thoughts and
You're dropping the bombs today. This is awesome. I'm thinking down this line even further actually, because we say, well, his honor won't let him do that. Well, his honor is Syl, kind of. Is this like Syl intervening? Like, is Syl, stopping the Stormlight from healing the brands, and Syl is like intentionally removing the disguise because she's, offended by it because it's deceitful and lies or something like that? I wonder.
She's over there with a little rag, like wiping away all the Stormlight from his head. Like, no. You need this.
No, not here, not right here. Leave this part.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Syl and the Stormlight had a conversation before, like, okay, we're gonna clean everything, we're gonna heal everything, but this right here, make sure we leave this, okay? That's the one job, all right? Now get after it.
It's Kaladin's Achilles heel. What if he gets hit, right in the forehead?
Yeah,
Is he not
exactly.
gonna heal there?
He can't heal it. Yeah. That's funny.
All right. Any more before we get to High Marshal Azure?
Just maybe reiterating or revisiting the fact that these brands are showing. These guys see the brands, and they invite him in anyway, which this seems odd because, like we said, not only does he have a slave brand, not only does he have a Shash dangerous brand, he's a Light Eyes. And they even comment on like, wow, what the heck did you do to get a Shash brand? And then they just kind of laugh it off and invite him in. Like, that doesn't make sense.
It's actually super important to consider that in the light of a military context, because if you had, traitor branded on the top of your forehead, no military branch is going to let you in. And these guys are like, we're desperate enough that you can join, like.
And is that that's the question? Is that it? They immediately identify him as, oh, you must be a deserter. Hey, come on, join us. It'll be fine. Like, are they just that desperate for help that they'll welcome anybody, or are they like a band of misfits somehow, and they are drawn to maybe kind of more of the outsiders or something like that? It doesn't seem to fit. Doesn't seem to make sense.
Anything else before our High Marshal?
Go on.
All right. High Marshal Azure walks into the barracks while Kaladin is having his first meal with the wall guard, and everybody turns, and she's a woman. She has short, gray, silver hair, and she's got a shard blade at her hip that she doesn't ever dismiss. And let me reiterate that she's a High Marshal. That's the same rank that Amaram was before he became a Bright Lord or a High Prince. That's not a low rank at all. And Elokar and Adolin have no context from where she came from, and none of her men do either. It all just kind of seems like, yeah, when they had the first attack on the wall, the Voidbringers, she kind of just showed up and was there and was like, hey, we're gonna fight now. And they had a couple interesting phrases to refer to her as, if you guys pick these up, and I'll highlight them if you didn't. But what are your guys' thoughts on High Marshal Azure?
I don't have that many thoughts on her herself, but I do about her sword. Of course, it's a shard blade that isn't dismissing, and it also says that there's no gemstone on the pommel, right? And Kaladin says that, like, the only time I've ever seen that was with the Assassin in White, Szeth, and his honor blade. And so he's assuming, I guess, that this is an honor blade, which I am too at this point. So, which either means it's someone like Szeth that just kind of happened. Well, I don't know how he got the Windrunner honor blade, do we? He just had it, you know.
The other
that, or she is a herald, right?
That is
those are the herald blades.
That is a very solid hypothesis, except for the fact that the heralds gave up their swords, but she could have gone and picked back up.
The other possibility, though, is that it's just I guess I'll say Spren blade, right? So when Kaladin summons Syl as a blade, she doesn't have a gemstone on the hilt, right, Trevor?
Correct.
Right. So I think it tells us that it's not I'll say, regular shard blade. It's not a
dead Spren blade.
Right. So it's either a Spren. It's either she's a Surge Binder Night Radiant with at the level where she can summon her Spren, or it's an honor blade. One of those two.
So on the honor blade thing, okay, I thought I had a good thought, but I guess not. So Talonel had his sword still, right? But he was the one that was left behind. Like, he was the
Correct.
one against the 9, so that makes sense. Okay. So, not 100% sure if this is a herald now. At first I was like, oh, Trevor's trying to throw me off the scent, but I'm on it. But no, that's not quite true.
Quick reference to where Szeth got his sword. You've kind of been told this at this point if you're reading between the lines, but in Dalinar's flashback chapter, where it's Ahari Etiam and everybody is dying everywhere and the 9 give up their swords, somebody walks into the clearing, and that's the guy that the Almighty chooses to be like, give his little speech with. He's Shin. And so it's kind of left up to the reader to assume that Shin guy grabbed the swords and walked off, and so that the Shin have had these swords for a while.
I think we had a couple other hints to that as well. There's like a Taravangian conversation where he references like the Shin and their honor blades or something, vague like that kind of hints towards it. So yeah, I am kind of on the boat of, I think this might be an honor blade here that she does have. I want it to be Talonel's honor blade. We know that honor blade kind of went missing, right? And so where was it? Well, the last time we saw it was
here
in Kholinar, right? He showed up at the front gate with it. We haven't seen it since. So did it get stuck or lost somewhere here and Azure just found it, and went to battle, did great deeds, and got elevated to the level of High Marshal? Maybe. That's plausible in my book.
I'll definitely keep an eye out for that, because we didn't get like an in-depth description of it, did we? Of Azure's blade? We did with Talonel's, though. I kind of vaguely remember it, but we did get a kind of in-depth description I could go look at or listen to and see,
Mhm.
So I'm curious about that. Is it a different one? Because if so, then we would be on our third honor blade now, right? We've seen the Windrunner one, we have the Windrunner one, and we've seen Talonel's. Is that right? Or have we
You
take?
you
Does
have
the
seen
Skybreak?
Talonel's,
Mm-hmm.
but like Elliot said, somebody swapped it before Talonel got to the Shattered Plains. He just had a normal shard blade at that point, and yeah, you have the honor blade. Rock has the honor. Rock has Yezrin's Windrunner.
Blade.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we got to look and we got to watch closely here and see what kind of powers she has. That's going to be, I think, the tell of can we figure out what order of night radiant she is, whether it's an honor blade or not, by figuring out what power she has. Because I think we know quite a bit now about the different powers, surges that the orders have. So even if we can figure out one, that's going to narrow things down quite a bit. But I didn't see anything in here that really jumped out to me as a surge. So we'll have to keep watching.
At the beginning of the chapter, Kaladin is leaning one way, and at the end of the chapter, he's leaning the other. So at the beginning of the chapter, Kaladin instantly thinks of, oh, that's an honor blade. And then at the end of the chapter, he's thinking, wait, I think I just found us another Knight's Radiant, is what he tells Adolin. So he goes from one hypothesis to the other in this chapter.
Well, I guess that's about the most notable thing I can think of is kind of figuring out her blade, because that will tell a lot.
Do you guys have any more predictions on Azure? Where is this all going? Are we going to be here for the assault? Are we going to get the Oathgate working before then?
I assume we're going to be hanging around here for a bit. Yeah, I don't know why we would meet all these like people and stuff if they're gonna like instantly vanish, but like it's possible. It kind of like our Parshindi characters we met when Kaladin was captured. It could be pretty short-lived. Just get a little insight to the people there and then dip, but I don't know.
I feel like we're building to two separate showdowns, if you will. One is Kaladin and Moash. So I think we will see some sort of invasion because I think Kaladin is going to charge into battle and realize that Moash is on the other end charging towards him, sort of thing. The other one is Elokar versus the Unmade, or however that's going to play out. Shallan versus the Unmade. However that whole thing is going to go down. Can they get into the palace? Can they defeat the Unmade? Can they save Aesudan and Elokar's son? So I think we've got two kind of parallel climaxes headed our way that might happen at the same time. I'm kind of imagining, a scene where we're like, jumping back and forth between the two, epic moments. Or maybe one will get delayed so we see the other one first. Not sure, but I think that's where we're going with both of these.
Are we getting the Oathgate before the invasion comes? Is there going to be like a proper Urithiru army in Kholinar before the battle happens? Yes, no?
That'd be pretty epic, wouldn't it? Big army versus big army. I don't know. I kind of feel like this Unmade's going to turn out to be more of an adversary than they even think, and that they're going to have a pretty hard time getting that Oathgate open. So I almost want to guess no, that we're going to have trouble with that. But I don't know. Shallan's pretty sneaky.
Shallan is pretty sneaky.
Shallan is pretty stinky, that's true. I don't fully know like how I imagine this kind of playing out is like Shallan ends up in a lot of trouble but kind of gets saved or something like that. But I imagine this unmade being different from our previous one in the sense like I felt like our previous one was like fight oriented, like creating beings or things like that to fight, and I just have this like sense which could not apply at all of this one being more like witty, like trying to control people's thoughts or things like that, more so than actually like fighting, even though like I'm assuming used mind control to stab Shallan or whatever was going on there whenever she initially approached. And maybe whenever they actually meet, it's just some weak little thing. But he's just like really mentally impactful. I don't know, that's just me over like theorizing for no real reason and with zero evidence. But I'm like, that would be kind of interesting. So I really have no like big prediction.
Nothing wrong with zero evidence theorizing.
Sure.
To close out this episode, I just want to highlight Azure's come fight speech that she gives Kaladin, and what we assume she's given, dozens of other guys in the city of you can hide in the city or you can make something of yourself and come fight with us. And you go think about it, and tomorrow when you inevitably make the right decision, we'll get you a wall guard patch. Like she's a very leadership, like, dare I say, entitlement to her. She just assumes that he'll make what in her mind is the right decision of, you're going to join the wall guard, you're going to fight with us because I see a real soldier in you.
Really like that section, and I was trying to read into that to maybe try and deduce some of the like virtues, I guess, that might go along with that might tie us to like a certain order of Knights Radiant, but I couldn't quite come to a conclusion there because it doesn't seem super Windrunner-y. The Windrunners are all about protection and no man left behind sort of thing, whereas this is much more like call to action. This is I'm going to inspire you to do something that you normally wouldn't do. This is out of your comfort zone sort of thing. So I'm not quite sure if that aligns with our orders that we've seen so far. So maybe it's an order that we haven't seen yet.
This isn't 100% match, but you've seen Shallan do this a couple times. What Azure's doing, where she'll walk up to a couple ruffians and say, "Hey, there's a bunch of innocent people dying over here. I know you guys used to be soldiers. Go save them." And they do. So, is she a Lightweaver?
It's a good question. I didn't think about that. That does potentially parallel. This seems a little bit different in that this is more of kind of like a lead from the front lines as opposed to Shallan's is more of a I'm gonna kind of inspire you and send you off sort of thing. But I see the comparison though.
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we close the episode?
Not here. Ready to keep
she's
reading.
An else caller. I think that's what it is.
Did you just pull a name out of a hat there?
No, I can kind of see it.
It's near Lightweaver, but it's not like it shares the soul casting virtue.
And I think it will have more of like the Yasna aspect, and then that will provide significance for Shallan of like almost feeling like she's overcoming the strengths that Yasna has, which is kind of a big trope for her.
Okay. Anything else?
All.
All right, let's keep reading and reconvene next week. Thanks for joining me, Paul and Eliot.
See you later.
Farewell.